I would like to call the Special Finance Committee meeting to order, and can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let it be noted that both directors are present, and it does not look like we have anybody for public comment. I imagine they're all here for the presentation. Okay, and nobody online. So we'll move on to approval of the minutes. They look good to me, so I'll move the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay. We will move right into the Site Logic, IQ, and Oppenheimer solar presentation and proposal.
Good afternoon. We have Site Logic here, and I believe Josh is going to be introducing everybody. And we've been looking at the potential for some solar to offset some of our electrical costs. So we wanted to have them come in and give you kind of a rundown of what we looked at. The project has been refined a little bit. Staff's been looking at it with Site Logic over the past few months. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Josh.
Thank you, John. Good evening, Director Mills. Good evening, Director Hayes and staff. Appreciate being here tonight. My name's Josh Stever, Government Relations at Site Logic. I've also had one of our lead engineers, Keegan Gothy, who's been primarily working with staff and, of course, our internal engineering and architects on putting this program together. And I've also been working and collaborating with our financial partner. That's one of the brokers through CSD Finance Corporation, Jeff Land with Oppenheimer, and he'll kind of talk a little more about his role as well. Looking forward to bringing this program to the Finance Committee. Staff and our team, again, have collaborated and worked well on developing what's the right program for the district. Kind of been talking for a couple years. So full disclosure, we have been, for the past probably like 6 months, the organization that's been working on trying to get your existing solar up at where it should be operating and making sure that system is running and you're generating, getting the benefits from the district side. During that time of those service agreements, we have explored conversations from the new building, what energy efficiency, code requirements from Sacramento that we're going to have to look into. Outside of those conversations, met with Sean. He's been excellent and really knows the lay of the land inside and out. And we said, well, what about everything else? You know, how do we get control of operating? We can't get control of the skyrocketing utility costs, so what can we do? And you're going to see not only a cost savings program, but this investment really is addressing some of those mandates from Sacramento, but you're really seeing a cash flow through this program that's going to help you in other areas. Next slide. Was there a clicker? No? I'll tell you, no worries. I have a brief agenda this evening, so we'll talk a little bit about who Site Logic is. Oh, if you want to go back one slide. No worries. Talk a little bit about who Site Logic is and introduce ourselves to this committee. We'll talk about the program objectives and what that scale and scope looks like. We'll bring up Jeff, talk about the financials, and then what that pathway to implementation will look like. Next slide, please. So first, who is Site Logic? Site Logic, we're a nationwide general contractor that specializes in energy as service. You would also be known as an energy service company or an ESCO. We are accredited all the way up through the Department of Energy and across other layers through NAESCO, which is a big organization that accredits energy service companies across the nation. But we've also been partners and sponsors for decade through CSDA, Aqua, SCAG, CARP, and the list goes on and on. My primary business is counties, municipalities, and special districts, so I don't get the K-12 benefits, so I understand on your end, if you're not K-12, you're challenged to do more with less. And with that said, there's about 150 of us in the state that specializes primarily on local government and the educational sector. And we understand not only state programs and local programs, but even federal. And we're in a iffy time on what was left to the current administration, where there are some incentives that the district will be able to benefit. We'll talk about that, but also some of the challenges that this state might be even doubling down on. And so again, this program helps even achieve some of those. Before I kind of talk about your specific program, I want to highlight a few other agencies within the district. If you can go to the next slide. Biola Community Service District. This was a solar project that was completed in 2022. I wanted to include specifically on this slide our dashboard. This dashboard you'll be able to see in real time your monitoring of the solar system, and we'll be working with staff making sure that our generation, 90%? So we're looking to generate up to about 90% of what the systems can, or guarantee 90% of what the systems can produce. And this client had a great install, and we're hitting those generation levels year over year. You can go to the next one. We also, Lamont Public Utility District. This was another large solar project. It actually just was completed last year, but they already are seeing the savings off the bat. This was done, I presume, yes, this was a cash project of $5.6 million, but they're seeing a cumulative savings of roughly a little over 17 million with the next 30 years. When we talk about your program objectives, you'll see you also have a really beneficial number to the district on that. And next slide. We also have Fallbrook Regional Healthcare District. This was a little unique. Their challenge was their parking lot, but we really focused on looking at building a solar structure that not only will help benefit that campus and clinic, but this site was also able to take advantage of the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the incentive from the federal administration that we'll talk a little bit more on. So SiteLogic, and we also, you have a few school districts up here that you're working with, correct?
Yeah, so there's 2 school districts in rural San Bernardino County that I've been working with. One of those being Baker Valley Unified School District. We did a solar project there, and I believe they're actually going to have permission to operate from the utility in about a month or so from now. So that construction is very close to being complete there. And then a little closer to you guys, at Lucerne Valley Unified School District. We're doing a comprehensive energy project there that includes solar, battery, some HVAC and lighting upgrades as well. So that one's not as far along as Baker Valley, but construction is still very much underway.
Yep, and we have some other special districts and municipalities actually also under construction, but really wanted to highlight projects that have been built. The list can go on and on, so if referrals are requested, please feel free, and we can provide a whole list of counties, cities, special districts, and the education sector. We can do that, or that you can review. Next slide, please. So program objectives. Before we kind of talk to the scope, what are you getting? We're here for energy. Main goal we're here for is renewable, solar. How do we generate renewable on some of the land to be able to help offset those loads? We're looking at 4 sites. You're going to see a couple models tonight, but I wanted to start at the greatest. So you'll see 4 sites that we've developed renewables for. These 4 sites, just by implementing these renewables, you can have up to about 37% of your electrical savings from just those 4 sites. And that's a pretty big number. That 30-year cumulative cash flow I was talking about, based off those 4 sites, apologies, yes, 12. It's just roughly over 12.6 million that you would be seeing in positive cash flow coming back to the district on this type of program. One, I don't want to say unique, strategic way that we've worked with staff is shared labor. And we haven't really finalized everything on what staff's going to take on, what we're going to take on. But you know your yards, you know your what's underneath, and you know there's some other shared labors that we've kind of already discussed in this development side on where a district can be able to save some money because they'll be able to take on that internally. And then lastly, those incentives on those 4 sites just from the Inflation Reduction Act on the federal side, which this project falls in line with even the sunset clauses that were passed in the Big Beautiful Bill on July 3rd or 4th. But you're seeing roughly about $1.8 million coming back from the Treasury to be contributed to this program or used in other areas. So that was a good highlight, and we'll dive deeper into those financials and you'll see how that's benefiting that. So I'm going to bring up Keegan. He's going to talk about those 4 sites, and we'll let you start from there. Thank you. Any questions before we get into the scope, actually? All right, perfect.
Thank you, Josh, and good afternoon, everybody. Like Josh mentioned, I'm going to walk through the 4 proposed sites that we're looking at for the PV installations here. This first one that we have on the screen here is well 15. This is the largest of the proposed solar installations and is for one of the district's newer sites. We would take advantage of the area just beyond the northern fence line as the district owns that portion, but nothing currently resides there. It's outside of the main operating area for that site. The installation would offset about half of the current energy consumption at that site, which translates to an annual savings of about $110,000. This also incorporates a rate switch from the commercial tariff that this site was on as of a few months ago to a pumping and agricultural tariff that most of the district sites are already on. Any questions on this site, on this placement? Alrighty, next slide. Thank you. This is a well 2. This next site has a little less than half of the solar at the previous site, and that's mostly due to site logistics and constraints. As you can see, we'd be installing solar on both sides of this site, and this is considerate of those water tanks there, as we wouldn't want those to shade the solar and hinder any of their production. Our proposal also considers the electrical service upgrades that the district will be conducting at the site, where the amperage of the main service is increasing by about 50%, and that's tentatively to occur in 2026 based on conversations with staff. We would work with the district to address safety and security here, as this site and the next site that I'll show here were highlighted as concerns for potential damage from vandalism and other things. For this site and the previous site that I showed, we are also mindful of changes in district operations over the next couple of years that will likely decrease the consumption at these sites regardless of the solar. But based on the energy offset percentages that I've shown here, we don't foresee any compromise in the the savings of the solar that's going to be generated based on the anticipated energy consumption that's going to occur at those sites. Any questions on well 2? Alrighty, so this next one here is a site 1C or a well 9B. It's overall really similar to well 2, just a little bit larger. We do have a higher energy offset here, but because this isn't, there's no foreseen energy reduction at this site, this sizing we believe can remain as is. As was the case at the previous site, we are mindful of shading from the water tanks as well as safety and security here. The site was mentioned as a potential concern. That orange square in the top middle is a Joshua tree, and as we all know, there are particular environmental concerns we have to watch out for with those. As a result, we may end up shaving a little bit of the solar on the eastern side to give it a little bit more of a buffer. But for now, we're keeping it as is, and we can get to that design change potentially later on. Any questions on well 9B? Alrighty, this last one here, site 1B, the operations yard. This site is the main difference between the financial pro formas that Jeff's going to show in a little bit here, where one or two of the pro formas don't include site 1B, whereas the other ones do, and you'll see the difference in the project cost. This site would be different than the other 3 in that these arrays shown on the screen are elevated shade structures, whereas the other ones I showed in the previous 3, those are ground-mounted systems, as in low to the ground. So the clearance height on these arrays on the southern end would be about 13.5 feet, and it'd be a little bit higher on the northern end because it is tilted facing south by a little bit. And that's a little higher than we often see when doing these, but we wanted to be mindful of the taller and larger equipment that passes through this site. You'll see on the screen that there's kind of two different options that are listed there. The smaller option that was considered previously was just the 2 arrays kind of on the eastern half. And then the larger option includes all of the 3 arrays that are shown there. In addition to energy cost savings, these arrays do also provide shade coverage for a good amount of the site, as you can see there. Similarly to well 2, which I showed a couple sites ago, our proposal does account for the district's plans to upgrade and actually move the main electrical service from the red square to the green square in the near future, as shown there. So not that we would be taking on that electrical upgrade necessarily, but the costs carried in our proposal account for that change to the the electrical infrastructure at that site. So that covers the 4 installations. Is there any questions on this site or any of the other ones?
Where
All
is
right.
site 1B located? Where's this at?
That's our Oasis yard. That's our operations yard on Oasis Road.
Okay. So then we need the height on those structures to get our equipment and vehicles in and out?
Correct.
So I keep saying this savings, but the cost is at the next section you're going to talk about?
Yes.
Okay.
The savings will also be shown year over year and how the potential lease parameters compare to those savings. Any other questions? All right, I'll turn it back over to Josh. Thank you.
Thank you, Keegan. I'm going to be inviting Jeff to come up. He's going to be going over the pro formas. They should actually be maybe a little more towards the end of your packet. We're going to be pulling them out of a different agenda item, and then we'll come back to the timeline.
Okay, good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me. Just want to do a brief introduction for myself. I'm Jeff Land with Oppenheimer. I'm an executive director with the Municipal Capital Markets Group at Oppenheimer. I've been in the business for about 20 years in October. Our organization is part of the CSD Finance Corporation, so we're one of the members of the finance consulting team, and I know that your agency has done various financings in the past through CSDA. Our team has also put a specific focus on energy efficiency financing over the last 5 years. We've teamed up with SiteLogic as a partner on various projects as well, so very familiar with this process. And I do just want to say that this is what's extremely helpful about being able to talk to a finance committee at this stage of the game is we can really get into the nitty-gritty details, and we can customize this. I do want to thank Don and SiteLogic for including me this early in the process. These are great projects. They do provide savings, but there is certainly a difference between a good deal and the best deal you could possibly get. And it certainly requires to optimize the most benefit that your agency can get. It does require some customization. And so some decisions can be made through various options. So really what I'm here today to do is give you guys some options, give you an opportunity to have a discussion, ask some questions. We can refine those options as well, and then just talk about the various trade-offs that are associated with each option. With that, I do want to pause for just a second to see, do you have any initial questions for me before I dig in?
I don't.
Okay. I think that what I'd like to do is, can we pull up the pro forma pages? Yeah, we want to start there. I think that's where we definitely want to dig in. Yeah, I'm sorry. We're all mixed around, I know. We did provide a lot in your agenda packet. We wanted to show you all the background numbers for everything. And I'm here to talk about those numbers. So let me just show me which
One of them's
we're
on page 36 for the first one.
Let me just see the first one that you're using so we can all be looking at the same thing. All right, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so this pro forma. What you should be looking at here should say it should say 3 sites at the top. So this is the project that did not include the 4th site, which is, I believe is referred to as, is it 1B? Yep. So the first one we're going to look at does not include the 1B site. Okay, so it's the smaller of your options, the smaller in scope of project. So first, let's just start with, what is the total amount that you would be looking to finance, because this is a financing. Now, while the intent and objective here is to create energy savings for you and not create a cost, to fund the project, in this respect, you would be working with someone like myself to finance it. So the amount that you'd be looking to finance for that project under this scenario would be $3,192,000. Now this is based on an interest rate, which we've provided, of 4.60% over a 20-year term. So it's a fixed rate term over 20 years. You may have saw today we got some good news from the Fed that they did do a small rate cut. Yeah. This interest rate that you see here has really baked in. The market was hoping for a greater rate cut today. We did see you would have thought you had seen a bigger drop in rates, but it did not, because the rate cut wasn't as extensive as some were hoping. So this rate that you're seeing here does bake in that Fed rate cut, okay, because the market was anticipating that. So we have a 20-year fixed rate, 4.60%. That interest rate also, please note, is tax exempt to the investor, meaning that they don't pay any capital gains or any taxes on their interest, okay? So that's a tax exempt rate. You have the benefit as a public agency from being able to procure tax exempt interest rates, which are lower than if you were doing a corporate loan or commercial financing, those interest rates are taxable to the investor. So the investor passes on their tax exemption to you, which provides that lower interest rate. It's one of the great benefits you have as a public agency, and it's something that we fought for over this last year to make sure it didn't get rolled into any tax legislation. All right, so we set the stage here. Now let's take a look at what your payments look like on this pro forma. So as you can see, and I will ask Josh and Keegan to come up and address any of the costs that are associated, but I do want to just address the savings that we're looking at under this scenario. So you can see net savings. You can see net savings each year, starting at $13,000. And those savings do escalate. So you can see once the financing is paid off, you see where these are pretty extensive savings on the back end. And those are the net savings that I want to point out. So this is certainly what you want to see with any sort of energy savings program or energy efficiency program. Savings every year. You're not creating a cost for your agency by doing this project. And then you can take a look at what the cumulative savings are on the far end. I do want to step aside for a second and allow Josh to talk about what was incorporated in these other columns with regard to how these energy savings are generated.
Put that there. Thank you, Jeff. So it's Jeff was talking about there's net savings to this program. How do we get there? So column 1, that's years, and even though the debt service is 20-year, majority of the life cycle cost of this technology is at least 30 years, and we'll get to some minor replacements of the technology over that lifetime as well. But that's column 1. Column 2 is going to be your utility cost avoidance regarding the solar generation. And as you see, out after 30 years, you're seeing a little over $8 million coming from that solar generation. We know that the Inflation Reduction Act, the district, like I said, fits in that window before the sunset phase, and we're roughly seeing, do you remember? It was on here, but
Yeah, it's kind of cut off.
Can I stop you just for a second?
Yeah.
We don't have the very bottom column down there with the totals on it on our printout.
It's cut off.
It got cut off. I'm going to put another one up on the screen that I have that shows it.
Oh, no. That's not good. So this. Yeah, I think it's at 480. It got cut off in my Excel.
You could have mine. No, you got a good copy? Cool. Okay, we have a good copy now.
Okay, so yeah, just got
Ready to go when you're ready.
You did get
Thank
it
you.
perfect. So as you're seeing, column 2, the utility cost avoidance on the solar generation side, again, roughly a little over 8 million over the next 30 years. We're going to verify the exact inflation or the ITC, what that incentive is regarding the 3 sites. I think there might be a typo, but I would like to explain the other 4 columns. Column 4, we haven't addressed any additional incentives or rebates from the state or even the local utility at this time. Rebates and incentives, they change every week. They're coming and going. So as we get closer to this public hearing, hopefully within a couple months, we get closer to actual finalizing and permitting, we'll know what additional outside of the Treasury incentive that we can go after as well. Now, column 5, you're getting a new toy. You know, you're getting new technology, and you have staff here that you haven't put a budget towards how to maintain it, and not everything can staff even maintain. So we wanted to model. This isn't included into the program contract. These would be separate yearly O&M agreements, but we at least wanted to model what that solar O&M operations and maintenance costs would look like. And as you see in year 11, year 21, the cost goes up by almost double. We're actually factoring, we know the solar panels have 30-year warranties and the life cycle is even farther than that, but you got inverters. And we're not just going to sit here and say, yeah, let's put this up and we walk away. We want to at least model that, you're going to have to replace, the district's going to have to replace inverters through a couple times through those 30 years to get the savings. And we're actually modeling and factoring that now, that there is a cost to keeping that technology operating. This does not have the existing site included, though we would be asking general manager to include just all sites together for any future O&M work on any of the solar. Which then brings us to column 6. So once we reduce that in the model, you're looking at a little over total program savings of 7 million. So after the lease payments Jeff was talking about of roughly 3.2 million, that's where you're seeing a cash flow back to the district of a little over 3.8 million. That's this model.
Yeah, and just to, we were able to pull up the number. So you see column 3 there, where it says Inflation Reduction Act. That subsidy is 1,290,000 that would be coming back to the district following completion of the project once it's live.
No, you're good. I was just seeing it.
And so so I want to pause again, and because I see you guys are studying this very closely, so I want to give you guys a second before we move on to see if there's any questions on this scenario.
So in column 7, the lease payments, if it's a fixed term lease, why do the payments jump and go back down? What's the difference?
Thank you for that question. When I started the discussion, I said there's some customization that we do with these to optimize your savings. So you could do a level debt service schedule, but a level debt service schedule would not mirror the energy escalation that's incorporated into these savings. So what we do is with the debt service, we have it mirror how your energy savings are escalating. So we make sure that it corresponds to that. If you did a level scenario, you might not see the same extent of savings throughout. You might see some costs you would probably see some costs in the earlier years. So that's why you see an escalation. It comes back down, it escalates back up, because what it's doing is it's mirroring how they're escalating those energy costs. Oh, question?
What kind of a guarantee do we get that we're going to hit these numbers?
The savings numbers?
Yes.
Oh, that's a question for SiteLogic.
Yeah, and that's a great question. Guarantee number one, someone like Jeff Land, Oppenheimer, CSD Finance Corp, and the bank behind them, they're believing in this project knowing that our calculations. So that's number one. Number two, on the solar production, we're doing a 10-year guarantee on that solar production at a 90% guarantee. Do you want to talk a little more on how you formulate your guarantees?
Yeah, well, I think one thing to mention too is based on discussions that we've had with staff, you'll see that they obviously escalate year over year, the solar savings, and that does consider both utility escalation as well as the solar degradation. So utility escalation of 5% year over year. With SoCal Edison, sometimes the rates go up 2%, sometimes they go up 15%. I think they just announced a 10% hike that's going to take effect. I'm not sure exactly when or if that even applies to this area, but long story short, there's wavering utility escalations, year over year. So based on conversations with staff, we felt 5% was fair, neither conservative or extreme. And then that solar degradation is factored into that too. So that solar degradation, while the solar is also being maintained. So even if the solar is being maintained, whether it's by us or by another entity, the panels will still degrade over time by about a factor of 0.45% year over year.
Yeah, and just so too, we had a discussion with Sean and looking at our Edison rates over the past. Sean, how many years did you look at? A number of years, and it is either 5% or a little bit more than 5% average over that time. And George is also tasked with verifying numbers, having a third party throw eyes on this and give us an evaluation, independent. Hey, we trust these guys, but we also like to verify the numbers that we do look at. So those kind of gives us a little bit on that end of it as far as the escalation, the degradation. It's kind of a typical number for that. But so we are looking at that to verify.
So it's great, we did all the homework and used all the numbers and everything. But if we're looking at what you projected right here and say in year 5, where are we at there? We got a net savings of 35,751. What if we don't hit that number? Do you pay us?
That's another great question. So any shortfalls, and this is more of a litigation in the contract, or more lawyers in the contract that would be bringing this to the table. So there are shortfalls. If we don't meet those shortfalls, we do reimburse the agency that year that we've missed. But we also get the right to fix it. So if we made an error out there and we know if we change this by doing this, then hopefully by next year there shouldn't be a shortfall. I've known in my whole career one time that's happened, and when we did tweak it, when we came back, it actually gave more of a savings than what we even projected. So that's kind of the language in there, and that's more of a lawyer litigation of how that's settled in that agreement itself.
I don't think anybody likes lawyer
No, I know,
litigation.
and that's why I was iffy on how to answer that, but it is a production gear that guarantee, and then there's all the language behind, the litigated language behind there of, well, what if the contractor doesn't meet it, force majeure, things like that.
Because I imagine we're looking at government code 4217 to
Correct. So that's another, this we just couldn't put solar
So-
anywhere and everywhere.
So if our numbers are wrong, then we shouldn't be using 4217.
Correct.
Yeah.
And this is a budget neutral program that pays for itself. So it is compliant with the government code.
Supposed to, but we need some kind of a guarantee that says it will.
Yes, it's in the contract of that solar production guarantee.
So on the guarantee, what percentage is the guarantee? Is it 100% of what you project? Is it 90%? 90% of what they project. Okay.
Good. So they write us a check though, but he's saying we go lawyer to lawyer if we get to that point.
No, I know, and I said I guess.
I mean, we've already been there with a solar project before.
Yeah, no, in the contract, we have a production guarantee of 10 years, and then there's other words in there that show what happens if we don't meet those words, and I was just trying to sum it up of, there's a shortfall we have to pay back, but then we would want to come out and try to fix it.
Do you guys have a draft contract that we could review before?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that was our next step after this meeting, was starting to understand really from Finance Committee on what option we're looking, so then we can start implementing those exhibits and attachments into the agreement and bring it to staff.
Has our attorney seen the contract?
No, it has not gone to our attorney yet. We wanted to go through the committees and kind of get a taste for if there's an appetite for this, to look at this project. And one of the things that I've talked to SiteLogic about, and they're probably tired of hearing it, we have a bid coming in for our administration or civic complex on October 9th. And one of the things we want to do, and we let them know we can't do anything as far as an approval or anything like that until we see that come in. Because if there's the potential for the price being, the bids we get in for that project higher than what we had projected, I have to have a plan on how we can fund that project, and if the board still wants to fund this project, how we would do that without exceeding some of the limits we have on the debt service ratio. I want to make sure that we're covered before we jump into anything else, because there is the potential for an additional expense on that. But we've also talked to them, and there's options too about how we deal with that, possibly in conjunction with this. So, we want to have all options on the table and be upfront with the board and the community on what we're looking at.
And then for the SCE rates, you used 5% a year escalation, is that correct?
Yes.
That's what you used?
What does that look
And
like
what-
if you put in Sean, do we know what our rate is for next year?
Goes up 10%.
I don't just yet.
Okay, if it went up 10%, this would look even better.
Yes.
But we don't know for sure yet on that.
I think the reason why they use 5 is because they don't want to be on the hook for in case it doesn't hit 10, right?
Yeah, five seemed to be a reasonable number. It might go up 10 this year, and it might go up 2 next year.
Right.
So the 5 seemed to be a kind of a happy median there.
Is there an escalation rate on your production of electricity and what it costs year over year?
Could you repeat that question, sorry?
Is there an escalation rate on what we pay you for kilowatt hour year over year?
So in this arrangement, you wouldn't be, the district would be owning the solar outright. You wouldn't be paying us for any kWh produced. So
Okay.
you would own these assets,
So it's not a PPA?
not the
That's why you can take advantage of the Inflation Reduction Act subsidy, because if it was a PPA, it goes to the PPA provider. Along those lines of the Inflation Reduction Act, I do want to point out, and when reviewing this pro forma and looking at the savings, these savings are contingent on receiving your subsidy.
Right.
Okay? Now, the good news here is that we have clarity on how you're going to achieve that. Because it has been, now they put a sunset, that we have a deadline we know we're working with. It's not moving around anymore. We know the deadline when the project needs to get done. We know the deadline when the application needs to go in. So we have all of that figured out. In addition, good news is we're seeing agencies that have gone through this process are getting their subsidy checks. So those aren't being held up. But I do want you to understand very clearly that this is contingent on that subsidy. Okay?
Good.
Okay.
Since you're the money expert, I have heard, they did 25 basis points this week.
Yep.
And they are, what I've heard, and I'm not sure if that's going to happen, is they're looking at 2 more cuts before the end of the year.
That's what I read as well.
Okay,
That's what I read
so
as well.
that could be an additional half a percent, and the numbers would look better with that, but there's no guarantee that the feds are actually going to drop their rates.
Yeah.
Didn't you bake those numbers in?
So thank you for that clarification. So this rate of 460 baked in the quarter point, okay?
Okay.
And the way that our process works, just so you know, when we have an identified timing for when you want to achieve funding, what we do is we work with a lender to get a term sheet, and that term sheet provides an interest rate. And when you sign that term sheet, what it does is it locks that interest rate, meaning that you are locked, you're hedged against market fluctuation, which is good. But here's the 2 sides of it. You lock in an interest rate, so it's not going to go up and it's not going to go down. That's the rate you're getting. So to Don's point, if there was a situation in which we had a term sheet signed with a lender and there was another rate cut and rates went down, unfortunately, you'd have to basically cancel the deal with the lender and go somewhere else to find start over to some extent.
Correct.
But that's, obviously we like it when rates are going down and not up. So that's always a good thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, if I could
Yeah.
just talk briefly about the option for funding this project. If the district, and I'm not suggesting this, but there's the option the district could pay cash for a project like this and save the 4.6%, which would kind of put him out of business for this project.
That's okay.
But the savings would be quite substantial even with that. You could look at the interest that we'd be paying over the period of time for the loan, and that would remain with the district, which is kind of about the same rate that we're getting through Cal Class right now. I think about 4.5% maybe. David, is that correct, what we're getting right now? 4.3 right now.
Good.
All kinds of options.
Yeah,
Good.
absolutely. And if you'd like, I can go on and we can talk about the other scenarios if you'd like, because there's some more customization to the other two scenarios that I did want to point out to the Finance Committee, if you guys are interested in looking at those. Oh yeah.
So these projected savings, you said that you're guaranteeing 90%. We're back over here, yes. 90%. Were these projected at 90% or 100%? What is this projecting?
Those are at 100%.
100%. Do you have an idea what 90% would look like on the bottom line?
Not offhand, but we can definitely get you that information.
Okay.
Okay. So I think what we could do is talk about. Oh yeah, absolutely, Josh.
I was just gonna say, I'm ready to continue on. If Director Mills
Oh.
is, okay.
So we're good to yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great. Then let's go on to the other two scenarios because those have a little bit more. Well, they're larger projects, but there's things that we want to point out with the other two options that the Finance Committee should be aware of. All right, which one do you want? Okay, no cap. Okay, thank you. All right, so this scenario that you have up right here, it should be titled 4 sites. And you should see a total amount financed of $4,789,000. The important thing on this one is there's a blue box that should be empty. It should say capitalized interest, CAPI, and that should be empty right now. So there shouldn't be a value there. So I want to make sure that we're looking at that scenario. Okay. So if you're there, we can dig in. So this is a very comparable scenario to the smaller project scenario, meaning that there is no pre-funded interest on this scenario. Pre-funded interest is also known as capitalized interest, and it's fairly common in construction financing to utilize that. Because the objective here with doing these projects is to create a budget neutral project, revenue neutral, create savings, you need to account for that construction period, right, where it's not the project itself is not generating the savings to pay the debt service. So when you remove a capitalized interest period and you just begin amortizing the payments right away, you can see with this scenario, you're going to have some costs in those early years, right? And so you can see there's about a $16,000 cost out there. The first cost you see year one, $16,000. It goes up to $28,000, then $27,000. So those 3 years, you have 3 years of costs under this scenario where you're not saving money, okay? And then you can see where the savings come in following thereafter. Now, this is part of the trade-off because when you don't fund any capitalized interest, you're not compounding that interest, right? So you're getting some good benefit later on in your amortization. However, you are paying more upfront. So there's a cost to that. So it becomes a policy question. Do we want more savings down the road or do we want some more savings upfront? And that's what you get when you have a scenario like this where there's no capitalized interest. And this is a larger project, as you can see. The next scenario to compare it to would be one with capitalized interest. So if you'd like to look at that, we can move on to that one, just to kind of see it as we're talking about the larger project.
Could you do this with the smaller project with 3 sites and what?
We looked at that. Don. It's a good question, Don. We actually looked at the capitalized interest. It's not required for the smaller site. We don't need the capitalized interest to create savings because there's no costs. When you begin amortizing, the savings are enough right away that you don't need to fund any capitalized interest. It's good to if you don't have to do it, you don't want to do it, right? Because you're compounding interest, and so it affects your savings down the road.
Okay, thank you.
So if you take a look at the last scenario there, you should see a value for capitalized interest, and it's not a significant value. It's only about $64,000 of capitalized interest. But one difference that you'll notice between this scenario that should have a amount financed of $4,853,000, one difference you'll notice there is there are no costs in those first few years. There is one cost in year 3, about $30,000, but there's no cost in those first 2 years. And that is a reflection of how we structured in that capitalized interest. We avoided that cost. With that being said, your downstream savings are not as significant when you fund in capitalized interest. You lose some of those savings in the later years. But you're not creating as much cost in the early years. And this is just related, just to re-clarify for everyone, this is just related to the larger project that includes the 1B site. The project that's the 3 sites, you do not have to fund capitalized interest, and it creates savings throughout. Okay? So that's a distinction between those. So if you're just looking, but if you want to do the 4 sites, including that 1B site, then you're comparing a scenario that has capitalized interest with a scenario that does not. And the question really becomes, does the district want to benefit from early savings and lose some savings in the later years, or do they want savings in those later years and you're willing to incur some costs in the early years? And that's really comes the fundamental question.
Sean, did you want to comment on the 3 sites versus the 4 sites? We did have some conversations about that too, that you may be interested in.
We did. Operationally, it would be beneficial to stick to the 3 sites. 1B is our operations yard. It's rather tight as it is. We have a lot of underground utilities. We have 2 production wells there. We have a booster facility. The board has approved and we have purchased the new electrical meter. We will be moving that electrical meter. It's tight as it is. We have to get rigs in and out, equipment. Operationally speaking, scenario with 3 sites instead of 4 makes more sense. Our operations yard is very crowded as it is. The benefit would be covered parking, both for district vehicle and personal vehicles, but with the minimum setbacks, we're losing some of that anyways, because these solar panels have to be set back from the fence lines. So in theory, we lose some of that covered parking benefit that was kind of there.
And could you talk to us briefly, Josh, this might be more you. You mentioned that it might be a combination of efforts between the district and SiteLogic, possibly having the district do some of the on-site work, the conduits and other things that would be needed for this project. Do the numbers that you gave here, do these take into account anything like that? And what kind of cost do you think we would be saving? I don't know if you've had the conversations with that.
Yeah.
I know you've been running that.
Yeah, I would say that in general, the costs that are shown do account for us taking it on entirely. And as we get further along, if we are to progress in the process where there is overlap and potential to put some of that responsibility on the district if they choose to, it would more than likely bring the costs down. So I guess to sum up, to answer the question, the costs that are shown there account for us more or less performing the work for everything, and the potential for the cost to decrease based on collaboration with the district is there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Don, do we want to have the conversation with Keegan? Because we did speak, operationally, we will be shifting. We know that, right? So well 15, when it was brought online, dynamically changed the way we operate day to day. We are in the midst of drilling well 16 and 18 as we speak. And Keegan can help me on this, because that's one thing we have looked at. We know our operations are going to shift. What does that look like? Well, when we know depth, quantity, and quality of water, we'd be able to paint a much more vivid picture. But right now, we don't know that answer. And I believe Keegan built in, what would you call it, like the the amount offset. Am I correct in that term?
Yeah, so the offset values that were shown on the PowerPoint earlier, those are representative of actual energy offsets as opposed to, like a cost savings or a cost offset. So for those two sites that Sean is talking about, we were showing 50% for one, and I believe the other one was about 29%. We think that, we typically see the energy savings kind of start to plateau once you get beyond 70%. We think that if there are substantial changes to the operations of well 15 and well 2, it may make sense to potentially downsize the solar when you do have a better idea of the quantity and the depth and how that's going to change the function at those sites. But based on our conversations that we had a couple of weeks ago, I don't foresee the cost savings that we've projected being hindered by the fluctuating operation at those two sites for the energy consumption specifically, especially at well 2. I think that one was at like a 29% offset, an energy offset. So the consumption at that site would have to increase pretty astronomically for that offset, the solar offset, to get anywhere close to 70%. Well 15, it may not take as much. So as a result, we may potentially downsize later on. But again, I still think even for well 15 at this point, it's unlikely. But once the district has a better idea of what the fluctuation in energy consumption would be at those sites, we'd be happy to consider that in our design.
Also, I know you've seen a lot of numbers and a lot of designs and everything, but one of the issues that we had before, and I know everybody's going to want to compare it to what we did at the Meadowbrook Dairy site. This is a different type of project. The energy that's generated on these sites will be used at the individual sites. The net metering project we did at the dairy was under the RES BCT program, and the energy that was generated from that is put into the system and then distributed, or actually it's distributed wherever those molecules go. But the offsets would be to individual accounts, and I believe it was 50 accounts that we can assign those credits to. And what happened with that and why we were upside down is as soon as we got the project completed, or very right in that time frame, Edison changed the program. And when they changed the program, we had a loss for a couple of years until there was another agency, Castaic Lake, that sued Southern California Edison for that, and we did receive a check for about $800,000, which kind of brought us back into line with where we needed to be with that project. So a little bit of a comparison. It's a different type of project, still at solar, but a different way of using the energy or getting credits for the energy.
To add on to ResBec 2, so like Don just mentioned, he's absolutely right. The solar at these sites would offset the specific load there. These 4 sites are currently on the ResBec program. So if and when this project were to progress, those 4 sites would be taken off, because you can't have solar offsetting specific usages of the site as well as have those specific sites be attached to the ResBec program. It's kind of double dipping at that point. So those would be taken off, and they would benefit from the savings from their site-specific solar only.
But they can be used at other sites.
Yes.
I mean, they would just be allocated differently.
Yeah,
and
you
I
can
believe
take
we
those-
look at that annually, is how those are adjusted?
We do look at that annually.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Those 4 sites can be taken off and 4 additional sites could be brought on.
I think I followed that. So you're saying the energy generated at those sites, if it generates more than the site needs, it can be used at another site, or it can't be?
It will not, and these are
Okay.
lower than the 70% threshold they were talking about. These are going to be in the, what, 40, 50%?
Yeah, typically. I think at one of them we are pretty close to 70. I think we're in the 60s. Yeah, 69%. There, you still have savings even when you are beyond 70%. They just start to taper off a little bit. And what we mean by that is you're only offsetting live energy consumption. So if it's a cloudy day and it's raining and your site is consuming a bunch of energy and the solar's not doing anything, or vice versa, if it's a really sunny day but you don't have a lot of energy consumption going on at your site, you don't take credit for it later on. You do get credit for selling energy back to the grid, That's not as advantageous these days. That was pretty advantageous under like NEM 2.0 when you got
sell it back to what Edison pays for it, right?
yeah,
You
you
get
got
hardly
dollar
anything
for
in
dollar
a
live
sense.
credit. The wholesale electric rate is what they call it when you sell back to the grid when your site doesn't need that energy the solar's producing. It's at a rate that's far lower than the 1-to-1 these days. All the more reason to keep the offset, you know, not as low as we can, but further away from that 70% if we can, to help ensure that the district will actually benefit from savings.
That makes sense to me.
If it's appropriate, I would like to just talk briefly about how your agency, if you did do a financing, would pay for that financing. Being the finance committee, I felt like that might be relevant. The way that we would, because the projects would be going onto sites associated with your water system, right? The source of repayment would be what's called a net revenue pledge, meaning that you make your debt service payment after it's a payment that is pledged after you pay operation and maintenance, so it's net. So after you pay operation and maintenance, you make a pledge to make that debt service payment from your water revenues, from the revenues in your water enterprise. Which means is, you know, as a CSD, you have pots of money, so it doesn't bleed into the pot of money that would be used for the recreation park operations. So it's really specific toward the water system operations.
Yeah, that our enterprise fund versus the governmental funds.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. So a lot of agencies find a benefit in that because it makes it pretty simple. The method of sale is what you've done in the past, being a direct placement with one lender that has a public finance group that does tax-exempt financing. And the process is very straightforward. It's between 45 and 60 days from start to finish. So from the time you decide you want to proceed, it's a 45 to 60-day process till the money can be closed and put into a project fund. Any questions about that?
Not for me.
Okay. I think that's all, unless you have any more questions about myself. I did include in your packet, you should have some information about us at Oppenheimer and who we've worked with. You know, we've worked in your area pretty extensively and in California. But thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great presentation.
If you want to.
So
A lot of,
oh, go ahead.
no, you first, please.
I was going to say, as we talked about before, my thought is, you know, the project should be evaluated. It looks like a pretty decent project, but I can't recommend any commitment until we have about 3 weeks from tomorrow. So the night, about 3 weeks and a couple days till we get the bids back on the building, and then we can evaluate where we're at, and then to be able to give the entire picture to the board of where we're at. And we also can have conversations during that time for different options if we are to look at building in somehow the additional for the building, which we don't know if that's going to be yet or if there's going to be. We did have 54 people show up for the non-mandatory pre-bid. Physically, yes. Yeah, physically 54 people showed up. So that's showing that we're going to get some very competitive bids for the civic complex.
How many different firms?
There were a total of 23 contractors on the bidders list. We had a list of 38. Those are subs, and those are interested in projects.
23 is a lot. That's good.
That's a great start.
Yes, and I believe there were a few that you would not see at a project like this. And I can name a few names, but they're big outfits, and that means that they're interested and hungry. So
Did we do a pre-qual for that?
that's going to be part of the bid packet. So typically what we've done in the past is we look at the top 3, and depending on where the 1 and 2 fall in, we'll look through the first 1 and 2 as far as qualifications. But we emphasize qualifications is of essence in submitting a bid packet for this project. So we said, make sure you qualify before you put your time and effort into submitting a bid for this project. So we will be evaluating those as they come in. the top two, maybe top three. And just like what we experienced with the enhancement project, we did that same method as far as evaluating the qualifications. And the top two were pretty tight. And we've had a couple contractors look at the bids thoroughly as far as them providing all the documentations that's required for this type of project. So it'll be overseen by the construction management team, and they've done this many times, and they know what to do and what not to do.
So sorry to get off track.
No, you're good. It's exciting that that new building's coming around, so.
I have no further comments. Director Mills, do you? No? Josh, you?
Just kind of to end, to piggyback on Dawn, understanding there is that sunset, there is still a sense of urgency, but we are so far along in the design, bringing finance to the table, understanding where those needs. Really today, and I think that was piggybacked even from engineering committee, is there's a couple great options. Let's take it to finance, what makes sense. From there, I think we would be looking towards more of middle or end, I'll use that word, end of October, to come back to a potential special council meeting or board meeting, or your board itself, if that meeting's still gonna happen, to come in and just do a full presentation to the entire board of the program. More in an executive summary, even though I know this presentation is a big executive summary, but really let's get it out knowing what that direction looks like. From there, I think we're on track for, as long as everything works out right, seeing maybe a potential public hearing in mid-November. I think once we get into that December, as long as we know it's going to public hearing, we should be comfortable. But if we're thinking of December of, well, does this go January after the holidays, things like now we're starting to get a little nervous to those potential deadlines.
What is the drop dead date for the 1.87?
We need to be in contract with also start of construction, which the team is daily trying to understand what minimal of construction. Well, we could just do the safe harbor for the meeting yesterday, right? Yeah. I'll let you, I know you're studying this.
Yeah, based on recent updates from the Big Beautiful Bill, the interpretation of construction start, some folks are interpreting that to be slightly more aggressive than what it typically was before the passing of the bill, meaning before the bill was passed, you could simply procure equipment and you would be guaranteed that would be start of construction. Now that the bill has passed, that still may be the case, but it also may not be. I think folks are a little more weary of it now. And as a result, they think some people are interpreting starting construction as actually having a little bit of earth moved and being able to physically document that you have started construction rather than just showing a purchase order. So safe harboring may or may not do it, but I think folks, since the bill have passed, have lost a little bit in confidence in procuring equipment equating to construction starting, unless you've heard otherwise.
And that deadline is June of 2000, or no, July 3rd of 2026.
Yeah. Now, the good thing for the time of construction for a project like this is, we've been in plan check and design with our admin building for the last 23 years next door. And we're finally getting through that. But with the government code being a water agency, and for energy production, it is exactly the same as our site at Meadowbrook Dairy. We do not have to go through the county for the permitting or zoning or anything else. We are exempt from that. So that does speed up the construction process if the board chooses to move forward with that.
And with 4217, you got, what, a 2-week public hearing, that's it?
Yep, 2-week public hearing,
public
and we
notice.
provided staff both sample language of both the public posting and even the resolution on both the project and the finance side as well. We will be 2 different items, even though we presented as one today. It will be 2 separate action items in your public hearing. We figure if we came and presented at in October, hopefully we can answer all questions, or at least some questions could pop into mind prior to that public hearing, which then, a little more minimal, and see if the public has anything to add and let you talk amongst yourselves, but we'd still be able to answer any questions during that process.
All right.
But that gives us about, if you look at the end of the year, even November and still some holidays and contract execution in December, we have that 6-month window of final engineering, making sure we got everything ready to move forward. And bond counsel, Jeff, who's bond counsel?
Albert Reyes from Kutak
Yep.
Rock.
And we've done plenty of these programs where at the end of the day, your bond counsel is going to be guiding through that IRO process and getting you locked in for there. We're just making sure we're bringing a program to the table that can hit some of the additional bonuses that the district can take advantage of.
Can you send us a copy of the contract so we can
Yeah,
start
yeah,
legal
we'll get-
review if we want to have them take a look, just a quick look at that?
We'll get you over the regular boilerplate, and then once we kind of know an option, we can start filling in those schedules and exhibits.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
But that would conclude my team's presentation today.
Great job. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Appreciate the time today, Director Mills, Director Hayes, and look forward to seeing everyone around. So, were you city council member or city manager?
I work for the city of Fontana.
City of Fontana, that's where it was. It's been a while since I've crossed paths with you.
All right,
Thank you again.
thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
We'll move on to committee comments. Director Mills.
I have no comments.
And I also have no comments. Move on to action items. Any prior meeting action items?
There were none.
And current meeting action item, just contract?
Yeah, we'll get the contract and have legal just give an overview of it.
Okay. And then the next regular meeting will be October 21st, it looks like, 2025. All right. Meeting adjourned at 5:08. Thank you.